Hello, my next guest. Who are you and what brings you to JCON?
Oh, I'm just a random traveller. My name is Steve Paul. I work for Sonotype for a couple of years. I used to work for Red Hat for a bit, and then I was at IBM for 28 years. Scary number. I'm a JVM engineer. I'm a DevOps guy. I care about security. And right now, I'm the director of developer relations at Sonotype. So my passion, because it's very much what Sonotype cares about, is security, but software supply chain security. So not like API stuff, but getting developers to be more security conscious in how they create software and how they choose dependencies and all that sort of stuff. So we're trying to get people to do a better job because of all the bad things that are happening.
We just had Karl Heinz here.
Yeah.
We talked about Maven, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't think that most people are aware that Sonotype is behind the
Yep.
Maven repository.
Absolutely. The history is really strange because two guys, Jason Van Zyl and Brian Fox, created Maven the tool way back in the early days of Java, and it was there as a make it easier to create builds. It was just there as a developer tool. But once you start talking about having an easy way of managing dependencies, you need to have somewhere to put the dependencies. So Brian and Jason started, I think it was actually Brian who had Maven Central under his desk at
So
home.
it's true. We were just wondering, is that true?
He says that he did, but I don't think it was for very long. It didn't. I mean, because Apache were hosted it. I'm fuzzy on the details. I know that for most of its life, it was funded by public subscription, and then it just got too big. So now it's, I don't know, this year we had 1 trillion downloads, and it just continues to grow. So so I know, long time, a couple of decades, Sonotype has been quietly running it. And that's Brian's passion because he's, an open source guy. And so that ethos is always around. And Maven Central, it's a great tool for us because we can say all the security software, the scanning software is used when you post to Maven Central, but that was never the intention. The intention was to give the community something. So which is, as you say, people got surprised when we reskinned it last year or the year before, and people saying, when did Sonotype buy Maven Central? It's like, no, we've been running it forever.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So your focus is a bit on security. So there are some horror stories we can say about from the JavaScript community where libraries got uploaded containing security issues and backdoors and are you sure that will not happen with Java libraries?
It's not impossible, but it's much harder. There are some really basic stuff. So, for instance, when you publish to Maven Central, you have to own the internet domain that matches the package that you're putting up. So that that requires proof of identity, and it requires you to spend some money to own a domain. And so that's one barrier. The second barrier is because you have to own the domain, you can't do what's called dependency confusion. So dependency confusion is where I publish something under one version and you publish the same package with, say, version 9999. And then when somebody comes to the latest version, they go latest. They don't get my latest, they get yours. You can't do that with Maven Central because you have to own the domain. Now, if somebody managed to take over domain ownership, theoretically it's possible. So you get that problem, which we don't have in general. The other one is typo squatting, where people, the name of the package they misspell. Again, if it's, I don't know, com.apache.foo and you spell it com.apache.ofo, you couldn't register that because it's within this higher domain. So it's slightly harder, slightly easier to do that. But again, you have to buy a domain to do that. So we're pretty, from a Java point of view, we're pretty secure because of those things. And of course, also anything that gets pushed up to Maven Central goes through all the scanning tools that we produce. And I joined Sonotype because when I was looking at this, I'm going, these guys know what they're doing. So it's not a sales pitch to say I think that they have one of the best set of solutions going. So that means Maven's very safe. But if you look at the other communities, you look at JavaScript and Python and stuff like all these things are possible because they don't really have the ownership mechanisms. So therefore, if I can register something and you can register something with the name slightly misspelled, somebody finds yours rather than mine, malware. Oh, and the other thing that makes this even worse is some of these packaging tools have exit to run and install, so they can run scripts. So there's another way for malware to get in. So with Java, you download something, nothing happens, you've just downloaded it. So there's a whole complete difference between the way the ecosystems work. And Java is, I don't know, by design, by default, safer. So, keep using Java.
Of course, with
Yes.
the Java
Yes.
community.
Oh, I know, I say Java, I mean Kotlin and
Yeah.
all those things. Yes.
It's all these amazing technologies running on the GVM.
Yeah.
And it's more than just Java there.
Well, the last time there was a Wikipedia page that was kept update for a bit, and I think the top it got to was about 850 programming languages ported to Java.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You go, there aren't that many programming languages, but it was a very high number. Yes.
Yeah, and there are a lot of engineers developing a language just to find out how the GVM works.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Everybody should try and write their own language. It's not hard. You can get into the weeds. If you start going down lexers and all those things, you can get very hard. It gets very hard. The hard bit is always with Java, with any programming language, is the conversion from source code to binary, to machine code. With Java, you don't have that problem. As long as you spit it out, you've got to learn bytecode and stuff like that. But as long as and that's not hard. Once you learn that stuff, you can create a language. Yeah.
We just had Otavio here. He's written a book. He has written a book about the bytecode. So if you want to understand how that works, there are great books about the topic and a lot of info.
Yeah,
online.
lots of Java developers, modern Java developers, current Java developers have lost track of how Java works, how JVMs work, and they might talk about GC and stuff like that. But the detail, I think, isn't particularly common knowledge. I'm doing a talk tomorrow about hidden security features of JVMs. A lot of stuff there that is mainstream, but not many people know about.
Yeah, it's not only security; it's also like garbage collection.
Yeah,
you don't need to know it as a Java developer because the JVM takes care of it.
Yeah,
but it's good if you know how it works and what you can achieve with it.
And because it works so well, you don't notice. Those of us that have been brought up with Java know that there were the early days of GC getting in the way and people being, it becoming a meme that things stopped because GC was kicking in, and that's all gone. And that's thanks to hundreds of millions of dollars of investment from over the years from loads of people. People don't realize just how much money has been pushed into the JVMs that they use today.
If you go back to security, there's a whole discussion trend going on about S-bombs.
Yes.
Is that part of that security process, being aware of what is in your project?
Yes. In a nutshell, we're seeing more and more legislation that is requiring you to provide proof of what you're shipping. So an S-bomb, the idea is that when I give you a product, even if it's a black box, you can't peer inside. I tell you what's inside it. And that S-bomb, that bill of materials, is what can then be used to check against, have you got any vulnerabilities? So you would no longer rely on me to tell you, you could check it yourself. And that's the first step, the requirement on producing one, and then the understanding that it becomes a legal document that you have to give to somebody else so they can keep themselves safe. And that's what the industry is trying to do. The way to look at it is to look at the way that a lot of the governments think about these things. So most governments don't understand software. So you often get like a car manufacturing analogy. So the analogy is, if you shipped a car and you knowingly knew the air brakes didn't work, then you would be liable, right? You would be criminally liable, but you'd also be required to do a recall. So who's got that version. That's slightly harder for us. But if I told you that you've got a car and one of the parts is a malfunctioning airbag, you can do something about it. You're not waiting for me to tell you. right? So it's better joined up. But a lot of this, the SBOM is the first artifact. The requirement from all the governments is a lot more about much more rigor and control over the process, because security issues, mistakes and things happen from the moment you write software. So what they're trying to do, they will force us to do, is to move away from a lot of the handcrafted build systems to more rigorous controls.
Yeah, and SBOM contains more than, so if I create a Java
Yeah.
application and I
Yeah.
have in my Maven POM file
Yeah.
5 dependencies and
Yeah.
a version,
Yeah.
there's actually probably more dependencies in there.
Yeah. Well, so in theory, the SBOM I give you will contain all of the code that I've shipped you in a way that you could scan for, as in you could go look up for vulnerabilities. So it would be initial dependencies, transitive dependencies. In theory, because, and this has been discussed, is that it would also tell you what compiler you used and what plugins you used and what operating system you used, down to something that was trackable. Because in theory, with a compiler, I mean, compiler vulnerabilities are pretty rare, but they do happen. If somebody spotted that there was a compiler vulnerability and you knew that the product you've got was built with that compiler, you might want to do something about it. So the SBOM, bill of materials, is similar to what you get on the side of a jar in a supermarket, but with more information, because it isn't just ingredients, it's also where do the ingredients come from, what's their provenance. So the pressure is to create an accountancy chain, unforgeable, unbreakable accountancy chains. Everything involved in mutating the software from source code to delivery, packaging it, combining it, whatever, is in there, so that you can see that if it affected if it gets affected, big ask. We're a long way away from satisfying that, but governments, like all these people, start with something,
Will
and the
enforce
first thing
it,
is
yeah.
the SBOM. Yeah.
Okay, so security is a hard topic,
Yes,
but it's actually pretty fascinating.
that's fabulous.
And a lot that you can learn from
Yeah.
not only security, but also how Maven works, how
Yeah.
applications get packaged and built and stuff.
Yeah.
like that.
I mean, I know a lot of this stuff over the years anyway, because you use these things and you get curious. The thing for me was that a few years ago when I was IBM, I sort of got bored doing JVMs, right? I just doing it too long and I wanted to do something else. So I took over running IBM's European DevOps team. And I went into there with a developer's hat on, and I came out with a DevOps hat. And the difference for me was that I went in as a developer going, if I'm going to run a DevOps team, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to fix all this nonsense about updates and patches and stuff, because it gets in the way. Let's not do that. What I came out with was I now understood exactly why these things are important and why we have to get developers to do that, which has sort of started why I'm here, because developers are not security conscious, they're not security aware, and when they do get told to do things, they see it as this chore that they try to work around. Yet what we're trying to do is keep everybody safe. We haven't got through it. We're getting there, but developers, because they're so often pushed about productivity, that the security becomes the second thing. But hopefully, especially with a lot of this legislation, there may be a little bit of kicking and screaming into the 21st century.
And it's so hard, but so important, because there are so many people on the wrong side, let's say.
Oh, yeah.
Who are trying whatever they can.
Yeah.
To get into applications, get into databases. So.
Yes. If you come to my workshop yesterday, we would have talked about that. The scary fact is that the estimate of the amount of money that it costs the world this year, which is a factor of how much the money do they steal from you and the consequences of whatever they do to trash systems, for you to recover. The current estimate is about $9 trillion. And when you get $9 trillion, and it's such a big amount. So one of the analogies we've got is that if that was a GDP number, cybercrime will be the third largest country in the world. And the way things are going, by 2025, 2026, it could be, by GDP, the number one country in the world. And you get, and it still doesn't compute. So the one I use in the UK, we've just started using, is in 2016, when cybercrime was about the same as the drug trading value, you could buy 2 million houses in the UK for the money that they were saying. Now, you can buy 85% of all the houses in the UK. There are millions of them. So the amount of money is ridiculous, and because it's so easy to do, it's just growing and growing, which is why developers are key to this, because they're the ones that make the first choices about what software comes in. They're the ones that should worry about upgrades. And if we could get them to realize how much control they have in keeping us safe, because it starts with them, we don't want to be in this position of having people with big sticks every time going, you're using a vulnerable thing, update it. We want Java developers to be making better choices so that happens less often. So they have to do that, because if you get hacked, I don't know. See, if you're a small company, 50% chance of going out of business. Bigger companies, less, but it's still a horrific attack. And of course, we're moving now also from it being attacks of money. We're seeing much more cyber warfare type attacks, which is much more nation states using the same tools, and they have different agendas. And you're looking at people not just say stealing data, you're also seeing people adding data. If you're a credit card company, or even if you're just a Amazon, somebody can compromise you and insert new accounts that and get bypassed any validation process that you've got. That's really valuable. They can then start sending all your goods to somebody, or whatever. So and the thing is that the bad guys are much more incented to do all this. They're much more thoughtful. And if I have one takeaway from all this, is like, don't think this is some 15-year-old guy in his bedroom. These are professional groups of developers, well paid, very motivated, just with criminal intent.
Yeah, there are businesses, but
absolutely
somewhere hidden.
Yeah,
with staff and big groups of developers really working on these hacks.
Yeah. I mean, there's not as many as you think, but there are enough of them to want to do this. Enough of them for all the governments to realize that they have to do something about it. And the money is a big thing for them, but the realization that these weapons are also weapons of war and can be used against you now. You can see what's happening. Or you've got nation states going, we have to prevent this. They can't attack us. But also they're going, how do we use this stuff to attack them? So, it's a new world.
It's a scary message, but it's one we have to bring.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so thank you for being here.
No.
And for sharing this story.
Thank you. And I hope your listeners, watchers, are suitably chastised, and will do something about it.
Okay, and they can visit all your talks online or here at the conference.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.